So if we were able to enact this plan, how soon, once we start, implementing it, will we get some sort of results back?
Yeah, well, I mean, some of our very near-shore coastal areas have groundwater travel times of just 2 years. And so I think the priority would be on the areas that have high nitrogen loads and have a threat of these sorts of neurotoxins, to address those homes. In fact, the plan has those as the priority areas. And in those areas with just a 2-year travel time, in 2 years, we'll see changes. There are other areas with longer travel times, but, as soon as 2 years.
So it takes.
The question Legislator Richburg raises is a legitimate question. With taxpayers contemplating a sales tax increase to fund this plan, with hundreds of millions of dollars for infrastructure, they want to know when they will see results. More to the question is, what results are we looking for? People expect to have a safe water supply and a healthy ecosystem. Whatever action we take, it has to protect the water supply and recharge the aquifers. It has to control harmful algae blooms, restore the eelgrass, salt marsh, shellfish, and promote fish populations. This is a map from the county's wastewater plan, and it shows the subwatershed areas with groundwater travel times of less than 2 years, which were mentioned by Chris Gobler. The plan has designated these areas as priority areas for nitrogen removal. So the strategy is to stop most, if not all, of the wastewater nitrogen that discharges into these areas by installing sewers or IA systems. According to the plan, this would amount to removing up to 65% of the nitrogen load to the receiving waters, and supposedly will resolve the problems and produce the wanted results. But as we know, this strategy of stopping wastewater discharge has not worked in the past. To demonstrate this, we took a look at the 2-year travel time subwatersheds that were sewered in the Great South Bay over 40 years ago. These subwatershed areas included the south shore of both Suffolk and Nassau counties. According to Chris Gobler, the sewering should have stopped problems like toxic algae blooms and neurotoxins after 2 years. But as shown on this map prepared by Stony Brook University and others, the toxic algae are appearing in the sewered area almost 40 years later.
2 years.
So it takes 2 years for the water to travel down.
It depends on your location. The closer you are to the shoreline, the quicker it happens. So for near shore areas, it could be 2 years or less. But if you're in the middle of the island, it can actually be decadal.
All right.
And I've seen the collapse of our shellfisheries, a 99% collapse in our scallops and clams, the loss of 90% of our eelgrass, the loss of close to 90% of our salt marshes. And, the science is crystal clear on all of this. The root cause of this is an overloading of nitrogen from land to sea. And that overloader of nitrogen is coming from wastewater. And
So, if the root cause of the problems is nitrogen, and the nitrogen is coming from wastewater, removing all the wastewater in these subwatershed areas should have resolved the problems and resulted in the restoration of the shellfish and seagrasses. But as we'll see, it did not. Here we see a downward trend in the harvesting of clams in the Great South Bay over a 30-year period. Here we see the correlation of sewer construction and this downward trend, and the occurrence of brown tide. Correlation does not prove cause and effect, but it does show that reducing nitrogen load by sewering did not help the shellfish industry. This is a map prepared by New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, showing the change in seagrasses on the south shore of Long Island between 2002 and 2018. According to the plan, sewering and eliminating nitrogen discharges in the area should have benefited the seagrasses. But as we can see from the map, removing the nitrogen did not help the seagrasses. Problems like these are warning signs that our ecosystem is out of balance.
Okay. You had mentioned about, though, that there's some measurement, which is travel time from the ground to the water, and that was the base. You believe that to be the basis for what we set out as the priority zones?
The priority zones are, again, first to protect Suffolk County citizens' drinking water, so making sure wellheads are being protected, and then looking at surface waters and saying secondary to public health, protecting coastal ecosystems.
This is not what the plan does. It has made the shoreline the priority area for reducing nitrogen discharge. in an attempt to stop the harmful algae blooms, save the seagrass, and restore the shellfish, which has not proven successful in the past. The priority area should be further inland, where the deep recharge occurs and the drinking water supply wells are located.
Yeah, well, I mean, some of our very near-shore coastal areas have groundwater travel times of just 2 years. And so I think the priority would be on the areas that have high nitrogen loads and have a threat of these sorts of neurotoxins, to address those homes. In fact, the plan has those as the priority areas. And in those areas with just a 2-year travel time, in 2 years, we'll see changes.
This looks like a case of the tail wagging the dog. With the threat of neurotoxins and the promise of undefined changes, the wastewater plan has presented nitrogen reduction of wastewater as a silver bullet that will cure all the ills of the estuaries. Nitrogen reduction of wastewater has not worked in the past, so why should we expect different results this time? There are more effective actions that can be taken to assure a safe water supply and a robust ecosystem. It is essential that we maintain the elevation of the groundwater table on the mainland to assure equilibrium of the freshwater flow to the bays and to moderate the water temperatures. And we must maintain adequate nutrient levels so our shellfish don't starve. With the vote on the county sales tax increase pending, it is time to revisit the wastewater plan. As we now know, the removal of wastewater nitrogen from groundwater has not produced the desired results. Other more effective actions need to be taken to keep our groundwater and surface waters in balance. It's time to adapt the plan in accordance with good science.